All yesterday, I was up in Sacramento. We have a really bad cannabis bill that could be heard anywhere between August 6th and August 15th. So what I went up to do is get up there yesterday before the well-paid, well-shoed, not on your side industry lobbyists get up there to say, hey, this is a great deal.
Right.
I made sure to let them know that they were not the only voice, and they certainly were not the voice of the patient community, and especially not the voice of the poor patient community. I had 4 face-to-face meetings with heads of staff for the Assembly's Appropriation Committee, which will be hearing this. That's its next stop before it could get onto the floor for a vote. Some of the things that you should be concerned about with this bill is that, you know how in San Francisco, 9 patients, then you have to go and sign up to be an MCD? By this law, they're going to bring it down to 5. So that would mean we would have we would have a whole bunch of medical cannabis dispensaries right here, just by the fact that we're associating as patients and sharing medicine. It's not 5 people that are investors in a multi-million-dollar corporation. You know by now that we have multi-million-dollar corporations that own dispensaries. So to have 5 poor people be in jeopardy of a state law for sharing medicine is outrageous. What we would have to pay to gather just as we are right now and be able to pass the joint to the next person, because that's considered distribution.
Right.
We would probably, let's say there's about, 35 of us here today, which would make 7 medical cannabis dispensaries. The permits would be $8,000 times 7 just to start with. Then you need your lawyers, you need your permit smoothers, you blah, blah, blah. You see what I'm saying? It's unreasonable law. It's money, 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 and unreasonable law. So what I've been proposing, much like other industries, is that there's a difference between a small corner store and a Kmart. Most of us use both. A lot of people will use both. But there's a huge difference in the impact that they'll have on that block with parking, the land use, all of that type of stuff, right? A lot different if you have 200 people going in and out of your door in 1 hour versus 200 people going in and out of your door a day, right? So if they make different commercial classes and really take into consideration the size and the scope of the project and what the project is doing before slapping on a standardized $8,000, that'd be much better. Now, when I talked to folks yesterday, they thought what I was proposing was pretty reasonable. If we get that by the end of, say, September, you're reading about a law for California that has different commercial classes so that more people can be compliant, so that more people can be involved in the medical cannabis businesses, so that more patients can have sharing circles, and if they're not, let's say, charging a fee to the poorest of poor, they get some type of discount. If you see something really reasonable happen, don't let other people take credit for it, because I did 15 hours of work yesterday, plus like 3 months of preparing, right? So you might have heard that ASA is going to go up there on Monday.
Oh, okay.
Right? And they're going to have a group of patients say that they support this measure. I think that's extremely cruel because your medicine's going to go up in price. I don't think that patients as consumers want their price of their medicine to go up, whether you're poor, rich, or in between. Is that a fair assessment? Is it already pretty out of reach? Absolutely.
$40 for a few flowers.
$40 for a few flowers, right? Right. So I went up there and I talked about what a poor person's budget is really like after the 5th of the month, once you've got your, space paid for, maybe paid a bill or two. If you're going to charge, right now, let's say a cheap eighth, $45. If they make this permitting process really expensive, it's going to go up another $10 because you know what? The millionaires aren't going to pay for the permitting process. You are. And that's outrageous because they've already gained a lot off of your backs and you know it. Think about all the money you've spent at dispensaries over the last 10 years in San Francisco.
Ouch.
We could all probably be living in a nice house by now combined, So it's a little bit about consumer choice as well. Some of the other problems with the bill that are extremely unfair that I say everybody should be alarmed about is they want to have, so everything, all the permitting is going to go into the Office of Consumer Affairs, which is good. We didn't want ABC. Yes, it's good.
Okay.
We didn't want ABC, which is alcohol beverage control. Okay? We're not alcohol. We don't need to go through a permitting process like alcohol, which is a dangerous substance. This is a harmless substance. We don't need to go over there. So we won that battle. We're in consumer affairs. But here's where we could lose the battle. They want to put one person as the chief of medical marijuana who will hire their own cronies as a little staff and make up all the rules, and then they inserted a sentence that said they can have closed-door meetings. How many people were with me at the Medical Cannabis Task Force in San Francisco and heard them try to have a closed-door meeting?
Yeah.
And we said, no way. There's nothing that they need to meet about that needs to be closed door.
It's all right. We need to be
Right, and there's some reasons why state task forces and things like that could have closed-door meetings. If we're talking about child pornography or people that hurt people, people could give testimony in private because they need to be protected, right? But there's nothing anybody should be saying about medical cannabis behind a closed door unless they're doing something shifty.
Exactly.
Okay? Yeah.
Amplify that. Wow, I'm telling you.
Right? So we came in and we said, fine, have your little sectioned off thing, but nothing gets finalized until a consumer panel vets it, has public hearings, and then we'll send it back to them. Because if we're going to be in consumer affairs, we should have a consumer panel that goes through what these guys want to see the rules be. I am not going to have ASA in a closed door section of the government making up the rules for the rest of us, because we know that they're not going to do anything for poor patients, because have they in the last 10 years?
Well, it seems like they've been dwindling and taking back and withdrawing, their components that they did share with the public. I don't know if it's because of what you're saying, that they're only catering to the opponents who not need the support and the
It's absolutely because of that. ASA through the last 10 years has done what's called restrictive permitting, where you go up and down the coast of the state, and supposedly we're helping cities create laws to better regulate medical cannabis, but in fact what they were doing, and what they did in our city, is when we started out the regulations, we had 42 medical cannabis dispensaries. They were able to take it down because a lot of people when confronted with a permitting situation and how much that costs and all the time and effort, were going to close their doors. And they knew that. And what happens when you limit the number of dispensaries is those dispensaries that get through the maze end up gathering all of the consumers from those that didn't. So we have a situation where we have fat cats. Like Berkeley just allowed a 4th permit. Oakland still has like what, under 4 clubs.
And San Jose is now excluded.
San Jose right now, we have friends in San Jose who are losing out big time. They're cutting down their clubs like crazy. Los Angeles lost 800 clubs thanks to ASA.
Ugh.
800 clubs, and only clubs that made it through that cut were clients of Don Duncan from ASA. So those are the kinds of things that I worry about, that small community getting behind closed doors. Yes?
But doesn't the Guardian...
If getting marijuana legalized, we can get support from politicians, and also does it matter what the United Nations might think about it?
I'm not sure if it matters what the United Nations thinks about it at this moment. I think what it would matter to the United Nations is some of the other stuff that's going on in Congress right now to get the medicine to the dying children. They should be behind that, and we should all be behind that, because I don't know if people read the news, but the little girl in New York who had was one of the main components of getting that law passed, she passed away before her law was passed. So, you know, tonight we close in her memory. We send her family love. It's completely disgusting to me that a child died waiting for medical cannabis. It's crazy. It's crazy making. But at least our Congress has a bill right now going for her and the other children that need immediate medical cannabis relief. So, you know, our nation is changing. And I think that is because of President Obama. We are going to continue to put pressure on our state government. But one of the other concerns about this, besides getting our consumer panel in there, is that on the cultivation side, in order for the dispensaries to purchase the medicine, the cultivators will all have to be registered as well. So that's another $8,000 to register every single cultivator that comes into a dispensary, which, you know, that's...
They call it legal still, though. They say, oh, this is a bill to legalize it.
Right. So what we're, again, asking for is different commercial classes. And then if, you know, one woman that I've been working with over the last couple of years who has a club in Sacramento, who's also a patient advocate, is Lynette Davies. And she's really, you know, she's a sweet lady. She's very different than me. She's super Christian, you know, and her club is about, you know, they pray every day at 6 o'clock, what have you. You all know I'm not into that. I'm not into religion. I'm into being a good person. But she has some really good concepts about the cultivation side of that. Because a lot of patients have small grows, right? Where they get their own medicine from it, and then they take a pound into, let's say, you know, their favorite dispensary to get reimbursed for their electricity bill and to be able to do the little small garden. If she compared it, and I thought this was a great comparison, she compared it to car dealers. You can sell 5 cars a year before you need to get a dealership license, right? That's a lot. That's actually pretty many cars to sell a year before you're required to get that dealer licenseship. So if we use that comparison to medical cannabis and say if you don't, you know, from your small garden get remunerated for more than 5 pounds or something like that, or make 5 transactions a year, you shouldn't have to go and get the dealer $8,000 permit and your FBI background check. You should be able to have your little small grow in your extra bedroom that you give away some of your medicine. And a lot of the medicine that I'm able to share with folks comes from small individual size gardens, because they tend to be the people that when I call them up and say, hey, I want to go out and give out some medicine to folks, they tend to be the people that are like, yeah, all right, I got a little bit of this, a little bit of that, see what you can do. If I go to like a big warehouse, you know, they're going to want me to go round up, you know, all these scripts for me and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And there's people that do that, and you all know who does that. And they're making money, and the warehouse is making money, and I don't necessarily think it's fair trade. I don't think people are getting what they deserve from that deal. And I've talked to the state government about that as well. So when I talk to the state government, I also talk to them about the fact that the city of Washington, D.C. has a sliding scale to free for poor people. The city of Berkeley enacted, and I hope everybody got to read the Guardian article. We had some famous Axians in it. We had Mike Hinkle, myself, you know, talking about getting this in San Francisco, which has been the other stuff that I've been doing for the last...
You gotta get that article. It's on the internet. I'm gonna download it.
You should. It's called Charity Case.
Charity Case.
If you haven't read it, it was in the SF Weekly, and it was called Charity Case.
Bookmark that. Sure.
Bookmark it. Read it, because, you know, that's one of the few times we're getting a poor people's voice into the conversation. But I told them, California is a state that needs to make it statewide. We already have the state of Maryland being willing to permit community centers. We already have sort of a foot in the door for our state to make more reasonable prices and permitting. We don't have our foot in that door. We've got our foot in this door. I've started to work with Jane Kim on what can we do for compassionate care for our city. Just so folks know the history, in 2006, AxisOfLove advocates worked with supervisor then Ross Mercarimi to create a resolution that every city permitted medical cannabis dispensary should have a compassion program. Why is it a resolution and not a law? I can tell you really easily. People like Eric Pearson from Spark, a lot of those industry folks did not want that to be a law.
Wow.
They wanted it to be voluntary. They went up there, and at that point I was asking Chris Daly to do it, and they told him not to.
Yep.
So when I tell you to know who your allies are, know who your allies are. And if they're a group in San Francisco that is not standing up for actual advocates and poor people's rights and access to medical cannabis, when right here in the city it was poor people and sick people that made it possible for them to legally open their door. Do they owe you? Yes, they do. Absolutely, without a hesitation, I can say that. And they should at least be able to do something comparable to what I do as a poor person myself. They are multi-millionaires at this point.
Hey, I got a quick question.
Sure.
So I feel the same way you do, and I'm pretty vocal, and I'm real political, and I've been around a long time, but I keep it on the under. My question is, a lot of the clubs that me and my friends go to, they tell us, yes, we have a compassion program, and then we'll even call them up, because one club will tell you one date, and then you go and they tell you another date. So what I do now is I call them up that day, and we run into several clubs that when we even call up and say, yeah, today's compassion, we get to the guy goes, you don't know what you're talking about. So my question is there a way to figure out, because most of the clubs when you join, they'll tell you to get your signature, yes, we have a compassion program. 3 weeks later, you find out they don't have anything, and you ask for your paperwork. I asked for my paperwork back.
I was like, you and me might ask for our paperwork back, but I hope other people aren't giving their paperwork to
They didn't
people.
really get mad. They either throw me something or give me my paperwork back. So my question is there a way to actually, so we can certify who actually has compassion, who doesn't, and then we can start jumping these other groups? Because there's at least 5 clubs that claim they have compassion, and they don't.
They don't want to do what we're all able to. We're all gathered here, and we're all gonna, share a joint, and we had a sandwich. Now, come on. You're telling me a multi-millionaire can't do this once a month, too? I mean, that kind of trips me out, And given I come from an experience and I've experienced not having medicine, so I have some dedication from experience. But you don't need to have experience to have dedication. You can be born completely privileged and still understand that it's good to share.
Well, you should.
Right?
Another point too, a lot of those medicines, when you do get compassion, like the actual quality of the medicine is
Hey, you guys, he's making a really good point. Let's listen up.
yeah, when you do get compassion from the place, I'm sure a lot of you know, a lot of times you just get some lawn trimming, you know, it's like
Well, some places don't even give compassion.
Yeah, I know,
That's the
and
bad
when
thing.
you
You
do,
give up your
it's just-
script
you
to
get
some of these MCDs and get nothing from them.
And you know that your script is worth something. If you walk away from nothing at all from coming to our dinners, please walk away with the fact that your cannabis script is worth something. Don't just hand it out. Ask questions, and if people aren't willing to answer your questions, don't give it to them. I mean, my God, it has your address on it too. I feel like saying to people, do you just give people the keys to your house?
Ouch.
Some people do, and it's not wise. About quality, that's a huge factor of what Berkeley borrowed from the law we tried to get passed here. And Berkeley says that it has to be of average quality. So the medicine that the average Joe is, that's able to make a gainful income with their disability, because there's plenty of people that identify as disabled that are still in the workforce. If they're able to purchase a medium rate, they're going to hand it out. What we wrote was high grade. What they have is average, but I need your guys' help to make it a law here in San Francisco, a minimum standard of care that includes the quality clause. We don't want it if it doesn't include the quality clause. One of the things they said to me is I am not going to get a percentage past the Republican caucus at the state level. So I'm going to try it through a different way, and that is giving some incentives and support for the people that do make donations. So you have like an annual fee that will come if you're permitted. Let's give those people that are willing to give out some medicine that's of quality a little discount in their annual fee. They are a lobbying unit for the businesses. I've told them again and again, quit saying that you're volunteers, that you're doing this for everybody, and just come out with it and say that you're lobbyists for businesses, and then we'll respect you a little bit more, because at least you're being honest. At least you're saying my clients are so and so. And if you look at who's on their board right now, they're all ASA's clients. Nick is from Spark. Brooke is from Bassa. The other one's from Mission Organics. So those are people that are clients of ASA. The business is a client of ASA, and they are there to go to bat for the business. And that is necessary. All different industries have lobbyists that work on behalf of the business itself. But all different communities also have a consumer or a patient advocacy. And that's where I get into it with ASA, where I'm like, no, I do patient advocacy, and you go to bat for paying clients. I'm not coming up to you and asking you, hey, give me a few bucks because I got to get up to Sacramento on Monday, and then I'm going to take all the rest of us up on Tuesday. I'm not going to do that. That would be crazy. I'm going to go to the compassionate business owners in the city and say, hey, I need to go do something. And you know what? Some of the compassionate business owners don't want ASA to know that they throw a few bucks in for a patient advocate to get up there. Now, what is that? That starts verging on going from being a legitimate business lobby to being something that practices group stalking, intimidation, and community dismantlement. And there are people up and down the coast that have experiences with ASA when they step out and question things. Some people really need to take the Western medicine right away on schedule and the way it flows, and have a goal of weaning themselves off. I don't want to say nobody should take psych meds and nobody should take seizure meds. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying is that even with those medicines, if you add cannabis in, you can lessen the harmful effects and the side effects. There's some people in our community, groups of lawyers that just want to kill this bill. That's also not a good idea. My position is that we should correct it, but we'll keep talking about it, throughout the next 2 weeks. But my position is we should amend and correct it, and here's why. I got the inner skinny that the federal government is basically saying to California, you need to get a statewide regulation system in place or we're going to start fining you for not having some sort of reasonable regulations on a statewide level. So, I don't want to be fined. I don't want anybody to be fined for us not having something set up, but I don't want the something that gets set up to sort of be hijacked by the richest of the rich so that only their dispensaries become the only legal outlets in California. And that's what you face if you let this go through as it is. You're looking at a select group of people being the only legal outlets in California. And that sucks. Oh, absolutely. And what sucks about that is then your choices are limited, the price goes up, and the quality goes down. Buy something, and if you're not, get the hell up out of here. Not letting the elders set a spell. Not having what I really appreciated about Martin Olive and Nicole Strand's club, Vapor Room, is their instant compassion program. So if you were a member, you could come in, sit down, and have a vapor bag. For an hour.
Sometimes longer, depending
on behavior and how well they trusted you, but I mean, that instant compassion really helped people in every single club that has the room, the seating to be able to have people sit down and be able to get some instant compassion. And just the fact of that a lot of us have mobility issues, to be like shooed in and out of the club when we had to ride the bus, walk a few blocks.
Well, some of them were taxed on what they were giving away too. They were having to pay taxes on all cannabis, including what they gave away.
Right, which Betty did try who's the chairman of the Board of Equalization, and she did try to answer that question about taxation and etc. But the tax on it, if you do your math, you sit down with your board of directors and figure it out. And then people also have to remember, we're talking at this point in the game, we're talking about asking multi-million-dollar corporations built upon activism started in our city by people who were dying to give back a very small percentage to the people that actually, made them.